Listen to me carefully. I am not talking about spare change. I am not talking about coins that jingle in your pocket and mean nothing to you. I am talking about a divine moment disguised as a human interruption. I am talking about that second when a hand stretches toward you from the dust of the street, eyes lowered, voice trembling or silent, and something inside you tightens. In that moment, heaven is watching. In that moment, God is not absent. In that moment, your destiny is closer than you think. Most people think giving money to a street beggar is a small thing. They think it is optional. They think it is charity or pity or social responsibility. But I tell you today, with all the authority of spiritual truth, that when you give to the one who has nothing, you are not responding to poverty, you are responding to God's invitation. That beggar is not random, that encounter is not accidental, that moment did not wander into your day by mistake. God does not waste moments, and God does not waste people. You may say, but there are so many. You may say, if I give to one, what difference does it make? You may say, they will misuse it. You may say, I am tired. But listen, none of those excuses will stand when weighed against divine purpose. God does not ask you to solve the world's poverty. God asks you to obey when compassion knocks on your heart. Obedience is never measured by outcome. It is measured by surrender. When you give to a street beggar, you are not funding weakness. You are confronting selfishness. You are not endorsing failure. You are challenging your own heart, because generosity is never about the receiver. First, it is about what God is shaping inside the giver. God is far more interested in what happens to your spirit than what happens to your wallet. There is a mystery in giving that the natural mind cannot understand. The world says, hold tighter. God says, open your hand. The world says, protect yourself. God says, trust me. The world says, you earned it. God says, I provided it. And when you stand at the crossroads between fear and faith, the beggar becomes the test. That person on the street may look powerless, but do not be deceived. They are standing in a position of spiritual authority over you in that moment. Not because they are superior, but because God has allowed them to become the measure of your obedience. Heaven sometimes sends its exams wrapped in discomfort. You see, money is not just currency. Money is testimony. It reveals where your trust lives. It reveals what you believe about provision. It reveals whether you see God as a limited supplier or an unlimited source. When you give reluctantly, you are confessing fear. When you give generously, you are declaring faith. Some people say, I will give when I have more. But if you cannot give when you have little, you will not give when you have much. Abundance does not create generosity. Generosity creates abundance. God watches what you do with what you have now, not what you promise to do later. Do you know why giving to a street beggar feels uncomfortable? Because it bypasses your control. You cannot track it, you cannot manage it, you cannot attach conditions to it. And God loves that kind of giving because it exposes whether you trust Him without guarantees. Faith that needs receipts is not faith, it is negotiation. When your hand releases money into the hand of someone who cannot repay you, something happens in the unseen realm. Chains of greed loosen, fear of lack weakens, pride loses ground, and God mocks you, not with poverty, but with trust. And when God trusts you, provision follows. You may think it's just a few bills. But in God's economy, obedience is never measured by amount. A small act done with a surrendered heart carries eternal weight. God does not multiply money. God multiplies faith, and faith produces provision. Let me tell you something deeply spiritual. Poverty is not only the absence of money, it is the presence of hopelessness. When you give to a street beggar, you are not just meeting a physical need, you are declaring that the world has not forgotten them, that God still sees them, that mercy still exists. Sometimes the greatest miracle is not the money, it is the dignity restored. And listen carefully, generosity does not weaken you, it strengthens you. Fear says, if I give, I will lack. Faith says, if I give, God will supply. One voice speaks from scarcity, the other speaks from eternity. Which voice will you obey? There are people listening to me right now who remember a moment years ago when they gave even though it hurt. They remember how God surprised them afterward. Doors opened, help arrived, peace settled. Not because God is transactional, but because God responds to hearts that trust Him beyond logic. You see, God is not impressed by how much you store. God is moved by how much you release. Stored water stagnates. Flowing water stays fresh. And when your life becomes a channel instead of a container, God keeps the supply moving. The street beggar may walk away and never remember your face, but God remembers. Heaven records what earth overlooks, and every act of generosity becomes a seed, not only for provision, but for protection, wisdom, and favor in moments you cannot foresee. Do not underestimate divine timing. That giving moment may be connected to a breakthrough you have been praying for. That small act of mercy may be unlocking a door you have been pushing against for years. God often ties our answers to our obedience in ways we do not recognize until later. People ask, why would God use money to test me? Because money touches survival, money touches security, money touches ego, and whatever touches your heart has the power to shape your destiny. God does not want your money, God wants your trust. When you give to the one who cannot give back, you align yourself with God's nature. God gives constantly without guarantee of gratitude. God gives breath to those who curse Him, rain to those who ignore Him, opportunities to those who doubt Him. And when you reflect that generosity, you reflect God. I am telling you today, do not rush past divine moments disguised as inconvenience. Do not harden your heart because the world taught you suspicion. Discernment is important, but compassion must remain alive. A closed heart is far more dangerous than an open hand. When you give with intention, give with humility, give without superiority. You are not above the beggar. You are one circumstance away from needing the same mercy. Gratitude keeps generosity pure. And understand this, giving does not make you righteous, but it reveals righteousness at work within you. It is evidence of a heart that understands that everything it holds came from God first. There is a law at work here, deeper than human economics. What you release creates space, and God fills space. Empty hands invite divine fullness. Tight fists repel it. Some of you have been praying for God to bless your work, your plans, your future. And God is asking you, can I trust your heart? Because success amplifies who you already are. If generosity is not present now, abundance will not create it later. Let me take you deeper, because this truth is not shallow, and this moment is not small. There is a spiritual reason why your heart reacts before your mind does when you see someone in need. Before logic speaks, before calculation begins, something within you stirs. That stirring is not emotion alone. It is the echo of God's nature within you. God designed the human heart to recognize need, not to exploit it, but to respond to it. And every time you silence that response, something in you grows quieter. But every time you honor it, something in you grows stronger. You must understand this. Generosity is not an act you perform, it is a posture you adopt. It is not about what leaves your hand, but about what governs your heart. A generous person does not give because they feel guilty, they give because they are free. Fear enslaves, trust liberates. And God desires a people who are not ruled by fear of lack, but anchored in confidence that He sees, He knows, and He provides. When you give to a street beggar, you are stepping into a spiritual rhythm older than nations and deeper than systems. God established long ago that those who care for the vulnerable align themselves with divine order. Not because God needs your help, but because God chooses to work through willing hearts. He could send provision from the sky, but He prefers to send it through people, because in doing so, He shapes both the receiver and the giver. Do not be deceived into thinking that your responsibility ends with skepticism. Yes, wisdom matters. Yes, discernment matters. But wisdom without mercy becomes cruelty, and discernment without compassion becomes pride. God never asks you to interrogate pain before responding to it. God asks you to love justice, to walk humbly, and to act with mercy. Mercy is not naive, it is courageous. There is a hidden war happening in those moments. Not between you and the beggar, but between fear and faith within you. Fear whispers, "What if you need this later?" Faith responds, "God is already in your tomorrow." Fear says, "Protect yourself." Faith says, "God is your protection." And every time you choose faith, its voice grows louder in your life. Some of you are fighting battles you cannot explain. Persistent anxiety, restlessness, dissatisfaction, even in moments of comfort. And you wonder why peace feels distant. I tell you, peace flows easily through generous hearts. Because generosity loosens the grip of self-preservation. And self-preservation is exhausting. Trusting God is restful. Do not reduce generosity to finances alone. Money is simply the most tangible expression of trust. When you release money, you release control. And control is the idol God quietly dismantles in the lives of those He prepares for greater things. God cannot entrust more to someone who clings tightly to what they already have. The street beggar may not know your name, but God knows your intention. And intention matters. God measures the heart before He measures the act. A small gift given with sincerity carries more weight than a large gift given with arrogance. God resists pride, but responds swiftly to humility. You may never know what your giving prevented. You may never know the despair it interrupted, the hunger it eased, the darkness it delayed. Not every miracle announces itself. Some miracles walk away quietly with bowed heads and grateful tears unseen. But heaven sees everyone. Understand this also. Generosity is prophetic. It speaks into the future before the future arrives. When you give in faith, you are declaring that God's provision is not bound by what you currently see. You are speaking abundance into existence through obedience. And God honors declarations backed by action. Some of you have been asking God for increase, but God has been asking you for alignment. Increase flows naturally where alignment exists. When your values align with God's heart, provision follows without strain. God does not struggle to bless those who reflect His nature. Let me speak plainly now. Hardness of heart is not strength, it is damage. A heart that has learned to ignore suffering has also learned to ignore joy. Compassion keeps your spirit alive. It keeps your humanity intact. And God values a tender heart more than a guarded one. When you walk past someone in need and feel that inner nudge, do not rush away from it. Pause, breathe, listen. That pause is sacred. That hesitation is holy. It is the space where obedience is born. You are not responsible for changing the world in one moment, but you are responsible for responding to the moments God places before you. Faithfulness is not measured by scale. It is measured by consistency. And let me tell you something that may unsettle you, but it is true. Some Tim The person you are called to help today is carrying the key to your own spiritual breakthrough. Not because they are powerful, but because God has chosen humility as the gateway to elevation. God lifts those who lift others. There is no loss in obedience. What feels like subtraction in your hand becomes multiplication in your life. God is not mocked. What is sown in faith returns in form, in time, and in ways that surpass expectation. Do not wait until generosity feels comfortable. Obedience rarely is. Comfort is not the signal of God's will. Conviction is. When your spirit is stirred, when your heart is challenged, when your mind resists, but your conscience insists, you are standing at the edge of growth. Giving trains your eyes to see abundance instead of scarcity. It shifts your focus from what you lack to what God supplies. And that shift changes everything. How you pray, how you work, how you plan, how you rest. God is not building wealthy people who fear losing everything. God is building faithful people who know where everything comes from. Security rooted in God cannot be shaken by circumstances. Now hear this with clarity and depth, because this truth must settle into your spirit. Giving is not merely an action of the hand. It is a declaration of allegiance. Every time you give to someone who cannot repay you, you are declaring who governs your life. You are announcing that God, not fear, not accumulation, not human approval, is your source. And that declaration carries weight in the unseen realm. There are people who pray loudly for blessings, but whisper when it comes time to obey. They ask God for expansion, but resist the very acts that enlarge the heart. God does not pour abundance into small-hearted living. God pours abundance into lives that can carry it without being corrupted by it. And generosity is the training ground for that capacity. Understand this. When you give to a street beggar, you are not lowering yourself. You are elevating your spirit. Pride always wants to stand above, to analyze, to judge, to distance itself. Humility moves closer. Humility does not ask, do they deserve it? Humility asks, what does God require of me now? Some people fear being taken advantage of. But listen carefully. God is your defender, not your suspicion. You will never be diminished by obedience. You will never be weakened by mercy. If anything is lost, God is fully capable of restoring it. But what is lost when compassion dies in the heart is far more costly than money. God designed giving as a pathway of freedom, because greed chains the soul. Attachment suffocates faith. But generosity loosens every knot that fear ties around the heart. When you give freely, you breathe freely. When you trust deeply, you live lightly. There is a reason God consistently draws attention to the poor, the overlooked, the marginalized. Not because they are objects of pity, but because they reveal the condition of society's soul. How a person treats those with no power reveals who they truly are. God watches closely in these moments, not to condemn, but to reveal. Do not underestimate the power of small obedience. History has been shaped not only by grand gestures, but by quiet acts of faith no one applauded. The unseen world is shaped by what is done in secret, with sincerity, without recognition. God rewards what the world ignores. Some of you are struggling to hear God clearly, and you wonder why guidance feels distant. Let me tell you something profound. Obedience sharpens spiritual hearing. The more you act on what you already know, the more clarity you receive. Generosity opens spiritual channels. It clears the static created by self-centered living. You see, God is not only interested in what you believe, but in how you embody that belief. Faith that never moves the hand has not yet moved the heart. Belief becomes powerful when it becomes visible. The street beggar is not beneath you. They are not your moral project. They are your neighbor in that moment. And God has always measured love by proximity. Love moves closer. Love notices. Love responds. There is also this truth you must grasp. Giving disrupts the illusion of ownership. Nothing you possess is truly yours. It is entrusted to you. And what is entrusted is meant to be managed with wisdom and released with purpose. Hoarding turns blessing into burden. Some of you are tired because you are carrying too much. You hold tightly to money, to control, to outcomes. Release brings rest. Trust brings peace. And peace is one of the clearest signs of alignment with God. Do not give to feel superior. Do not give to be seen. Do not give to quiet guilt. Give because your heart has been trained to respond to God's voice even when no one is watching. That kind of giving shapes character, not image. Let me speak to those who have been wounded by disappointment. Perhaps you gave before and felt it was wasted. Perhaps gratitude never came. Perhaps your expectations were unmet. I tell you this with authority, obedience is never wasted. Seeds do not disappear, they go underground. And underground does not mean dead, it means hidden growth. God is far more interested in consistency than in intensity. A lifestyle of generosity will outlast moments of emotional giving. Train your heart to respond steadily, not sporadically. Faithfulness is powerful because it is quiet and enduring. There is also a connection between generosity and courage. Fear makes people small. Generosity makes people bold. When you know God is your provider, you walk differently. You speak differently. You decide differently. Scarcity thinking shrinks vision. Trust in God expands it. Some of you are standing at thresholds in life. New seasons, new responsibilities, new opportunities, and God is watching how you steward what is already in your hand. Transition seasons reveal priorities. They test whether faith is theoretical or lived. Giving to someone in need reminds you of your own dependence on God. It keeps gratitude alive. It reminds you that provision is not guaranteed by effort alone, but sustained by grace. And understand this deeply, generosity aligns you with divine timing. When you respond promptly to need, you train yourself to respond promptly to instruction. Delay hardens hearts. Immediate obedience softens them. There is no room for arrogance in a generous life. Giving keeps you grounded. It reminds you that status is temporary, possessions are fleeting, and character is eternal. God values who you are becoming far more than what you are accumulating. You were not created to live closed, guarded, suspicious. You were created to live open, discerning, and courageous. God did not design your life to be ruled by fear of tomorrow, but by trust in the one who already stands there. Let this truth press deeper into you now. Giving is not something you add to your life. It is something that reveals your life. It exposes what you believe when no one is watching and no applause is coming. In the silence of that moment, when your hand reaches out or pulls back, your faith speaks louder than any prayer you've ever spoken with words. Many people think faith lives only in sacred spaces, but faith proves itself in ordinary places. Faith proves itself on crowded streets, in uncomfortable encounters, in moments that interrupt your plans. God does not confine spiritual tests to temples or quiet rooms. God meets you in motion, in noise, in inconvenience, because real trust is forged in real life. When you give to a street beggar, you are acknowledging a reality greater than social status. You are acknowledging that human worth is not measured by productivity, appearance, or success. You are declaring that value comes from God alone. And when you live by that truth, you free yourself from the exhausting need to compare, compete, and elevate yourself above others. There is something powerful about giving without being asked twice. Hesitation reveals negotiation. Immediate obedience reveals trust. God delights in hearts that respond without delay, not because they are impulsive, but because they are aligned. Alignment produces confidence, and confidence produces peace. Let me tell you something that challenges. Comfort, generosity will cost you something. If it does not cost you, it has not yet stretched you. Growth always requires tension. Muscles grow under resistance. Faith grows under pressure. God allows moments that stretch you so that your capacity for Him can increase. Some of you have learned to justify indifference with logic. You have learned to shield your heart with explanations. But logic without love becomes empty, and explanations without compassion become excuses.